Yo, what's good, everybody? Back with another episode of Two Really Dudes. I got my man here. I stack the boss,
What
Big
up?
Frito. What up? What up? What up?
What's good, man? I think we 7 episodes in, or eight. I want to say this is. I want to say eight
Yo,
episodes in.
yeah, I was looking at a flyer, man, and it said I think like March 28th was our first episode. And
Wow.
so, yo, we've been going hard for a few weeks with bringing dope content, bringing
Yeah.
dope speakers, and all of that. But for the people that are watching right now, I just want to encourage you to like it, to share it, to go on YouTube and just keep putting it out there as we keep trying to put out this dope content. Share it right now. Hit a like button. Let us know that you feeling it, that you're receiving it, and and we just can keep this going, man. So what's up with you, dude?
Man, wow, it's been a crazy week, crazy 2 weeks, man. A lot of stuff going on. I've been trying my best not to get so immersed in the news, but when you're on social media, it's hard for you to miss what's going on. So before we actually get into all of that, I actually feel like it might be better to bring our guest out because I feel like he can be a part of this conversation. Just so much going on right now. But yeah, man, but let me get into it. So, man, I feel like I'm on a roll as far as my alma mater is concerned. I think you need to get somebody in from your alma mater, man.
Yo, fam, well, my alma mater don't exist no more.
So look, man, check this out. So this is another really proud moment for me because, and coincidentally, this is another one from the School of Business and Industry, the school that my wife attended, at Florida A&M. Man, they've just produced a whole bunch of giants in industry and just about every industry you can think of. And this is not short of that. So person that I'm going to bring out, man, he sent me something, a little blurb about himself, and I want to read it because, no one else can describe you better than you can. So right. I want to read it to you. He's a self-proclaimed race man, a lover of culture. He's a history buff. He strives to bring voice to the voiceless. I think that we all should strive for that. He's an international and global business leader. And I'll let him tell a little bit more about himself specific to that. He's a family man. He spelled it children. He's a children's daddy, a wife's man, a mama's son. And he's passionate about microeconomics. And he'll probably get a little bit into that. But without further ado, man, I want to introduce my guy, Javante and Abuele.
Bring them out. Bring them out.
Bring them out. Bring them out. It's hard to yell. What's goody? What's goody?
That's a completely different vibe than the one I just left with Jill.
No, man.
That's right.
How was it, man? Just a little. How was your experience? Was the internet working? Did they have high speed?
They had their they started on time for the ladies, about 10 minutes late, fashionably late.
Right.
The internet is working fine. They're vibing, it's all love, they're sharing stories, they're really good friends, and when they play those bangers, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think what I've learned in this whole versus world, once they started doing this, like how many hits these people got. Like, sometimes if you're not really like into an artist and you listen to them casually, but then you realize when you watch those kinds of like battles, like, man, I can literally name I can name a whole bunch of them, and I recognize a whole bunch of the hits that they were playing, and even some of the stuff that they played that may not necessarily be popular were things that I heard. So I think that's actually pretty dope, though.
Yeah. They soundtrack our lives, so it's great to enjoy with everyone tuned in because of the pandemic. Getting to go back down memory lane, it's like sitting in the back of the school bus. They were playing, all the songs on the way home from school, so.
Right. So look, man, let's get into it, man. It's been a crazy week. Crazy week. As you all know, obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, about the shooting that took place, just another one. It just feels like we talk about this quite often, and it's almost as if we're becoming a little bit desensitized, but I don't want us to get to that point because I think that we got to keep it top of mind, because I think what the media does is it's almost as if like they're giving you a numbing agent by playing it over and over so you can become desensitized. And I think that that's the trap. But what I'm speaking of is Ahmaud Arbery and the debacle that we all saw recorded on video, and just some of the new stuff that's coming out about it. What were you guys' thoughts initially about that?
Man, so I think, man, this is, I think sometimes we tend to look at this in the sense of this is America acting outside of normal, and that this isn't, that this is a shock to us. But I feel like this is America's pastime. This is as American as apple pie,
Right.
hunting and shooting black men. Like this is the cycle of our society. And unfortunately, in my opinion, we're going to be back at the same place because another unarmed black man, God forbid, is about to get shot and murdered. Yeah. And I think what's frustrating is the fact that America continues to remind us of how much we're not valued, because these two men were able to stay at home for 2 months, for more than 2 months. Since February, this dude was killed, and they were just home chilling and acting like, ain't nothing going on. And if that video didn't unearth, if that video ain't come out, they would have been scot-free, relaxing, drinking a six-pack and doing whatever they do.
Waiting on the next black man to jog by.
Yep.
Yeah, the mendacity and audacity of it all is really, it's a peculiar thing that is special to white men in America, where, the video emerged because their friend who filmed it released it in the hopes that it would calm all of the qualms that were happening locally there. Right. He thought absolutely they were in the right. And I've often explained that our existence, in antebellum versus post-antebellum, was one of an asset and then immediately turned into a liability.
Right.
So we're treated like vermin. So, if a rat is in your house, you're nice if you let it live, but nobody thinks twice if you kill it.
Right.
And I think that's often how we're viewed, is that our utilization in this country ran out a long time ago. The rich white folks were mad at us because we were no longer assets to them. The poor white folks were mad at us because now we'd be willing to work for less than what they would work for.
Right.
And so, my grandma used to say, they got us coming and going.
Yeah.
We kept coming and going, and nothing has really changed around that, and nothing will until we're able to put our own footprint on ensuring that we have more than just a philosophical and a symbolizing voice, but we actually have a lot more stake into the wealth, the GDP of this country. At the end of the day, it comes down to that. And it doesn't matter what type of economic system you live in, capitalism, communism, socialism. I've lived in all three, or worked in all three for sure. At the end of the day, the GDP matters.
Right.
And so when they look at us and when they look across, if we're not contributing to that, we become seen as vermin.
Yeah.
And so we have these crazy white men who believe that in their heart of hearts that they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, and you raise a good point, Javante, because what I'm hearing and what I understand is, even if these men are convicted, and we're hoping that they get a conviction, we know the pattern of these yet to be United States of America is that it still does not stop the cycle of racism.
Yeah.
And the continual murder and destruction of black and brown bodies, particularly black bodies, even if they get a conviction, because you've seen prior times like this stuff continues to happen. And so I hear what you're saying about the GDP and the value of black bodies and, and just all the things that you're discussing now. So I'd love more if you elaborate.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. And I will, but I want to be very clear in stating that I am not saying that our GDP is our key to our safety.
Right.
To GDP is key to our safety.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not saying that is required for us to exist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying we should be able to exist because we're humans just like everyone else.
Right.
Right.
But what I'm saying is there won't be a lot of change on their end until we're able to show them in the language that they speak. And the language that they do speak specifically is about the value. Now, if you just contrast and compare the differences between how we're viewed, African Americans, African people in this country, versus Indians that come, Indian Americans, Asian Americans, the more recent Eastern European immigrants, there's a huge difference. And a lot of that difference is tied into what can be done or what is perceived can be done for the country. They own assets, intellectual property. We've had our assets stolen, and we give a lot of them away in terms of our intellectual property. So, at the end of the day, it's about how can we create an environment where our value is known, and then we protect that. And I'm not mincing words here. When I say protect that, I mean with arms, our own police, our own communities protected by us. Then that's when government, municipalities at the local, state, federal level will then say, okay, this is a protected class.
Yeah.
We're second-class citizens.
Yeah.
And until a lot of things change, and what we're going to talk about today, we're going to remain second-class citizens until some fundamental shifts happen in this country. And one of them is repairing the wrongs of the past.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of powerful things in what you just spoke about. And I think that this is a good time to transition into the topic at hand as far as what we want to talk about today. And setting up or even talking about this topic with everyone that I've spoken to about it leading up to this, there seems to be a negative stigma associated with the word reparations, right? And part of the reason why I selected you to even come on the show to even talk about this, because you have a worldview about reparations that I feel is a little bit more palatable for those that, one, don't understand what it really means, two, that have either an extreme view of it or people that may not necessarily embrace the idea of it at all, people that look like us and folks that don't look like us. So I want to talk about the debt, the debt that America owes, the one that they choose not to speak about, and the constant barrage of violence and all the things that we experience in this country and continue to experience. And I want you to make a connection between those things we've experienced, continue to experience, and reparations, and your idea behind why it is such a crucial thing in order for us to be made whole.
Yeah. So let's start with the latter part of the question and why it's so crucial.
Sure.
I am a strong proponent of Black business, supporting Black folk, doing all that we can with what we have to advance ourselves in the ways that we can, and advance ourselves further than our ancestors did. I completely believe in Black-owned businesses. I mean, my life or my life's work has been around that idea. But I know fundamentally, if we produce the equitable amount of businesses that we should have, which is much less than we do now, if we do that, if everyone is 100% employed, we still have a mighty long race to run to even get to the same level as our counterparts, white, Asian, or even Hispanic in this country. What we can do for ourselves, no matter what it is, through education, through good behavior, through economics, it can only be seen as lifeboats. We're sinking. The ship is sunk. We're sinking. And those things are just lifeboats. But if we want to put our feet on dry land, we have to talk about reparations. So coming out of the clouds a little bit to talk about this, what I mean is specifically, studies have been done, economists have done studies and said, for the average Black person to catch up with the average white person, we would have to run a perfect race of building wealth for 270 years while white folks build nothing at all.
Wow.
This is where we are. And that gap is not a gap that happened by happenstance. the U.S. government is the reason for that gap. The U.S. government has specifically and very prescriptively done things throughout history, which has kept us from any type of wealth accumulation. So you look at all of our numbers, right now, today, you talked about the right now, what's happening. And, we can talk about the violence, we'll get there. But when you look at what's happening with this pandemic and how it's affected small businesses employ 75% of all Americans. Okay, most small businesses, an overwhelming majority, 85% of small businesses, owners say that they hire people who look like them. Okay, Black people only have 2 million, some say 2.3 million Black-owned businesses. 98% of those businesses are sole proprietorships. So that means they're not hiring anybody. So who is hiring us? So why our unemployment rate is always double or triple the national average is simply because there are not enough jobs for us. Why are there not enough jobs for us? We know that we're not inept. We know there has to be something more specifically, that would apply to that. As we look in this pandemic and the small businesses and how they've been affected, the PPP loan program that was set up, the law, the way that was written was that you can get money for every employee you have. Well, if 98% of our 2 million businesses are sole proprietorships,
you don't qualify.
2 million Black folks that ain't getting the PPP. That's 5% of our people. You got to take, we got 40 million folks, and that's 2 million are just employed by that. But we got 40 million folks. If you do a third, let's make it, very simple math. And let's just round up and let's just say it's 13 million. Let's say it's 13 million, a third, man, woman, children. So you take off a third of that 13 for you up at 27 million folks, and you got 2 million. You're talking almost 8% of Black folks who are stranded in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
Something's not right with that, right? So how did we get there? Well, we know that we don't grow our businesses because banks don't loan to Black-owned businesses. Why don't banks loan to Black-owned businesses? Well, for a very long time, banks' loans weren't secured. So all of the HUB zone loans that come from the federal government, all of the small business loans through the Small Business Association that banks are doing, but they know that their security is backed or they have a backed security in this loan product. It wasn't going to Black-owned businesses, and it wasn't only going to them, it could not go. The law was written where it could not go to Black-owned businesses. The same thing with mortgages. We can go on and on about how we got here, and this is all post-slavery, right? So we're not even talking about slavery, but the atrocities that have happened. When we talk about, similar things that have happened where the government tricked off $1 trillion in like 6 weeks with all these PPP things, and we have been kept out of this. This happened in 1933, 34 with FDR's New Deal. Black folks weren't a part of the New Deal, and not just weren't a part of it. We were kept out of the New Deal.
Right. I mean, systematically.
Yeah, and even we were kept out of the Constitution. So all of the major documents and major laws that have been implemented in this country have left Black people out of it, while they've always used our bodies to develop and build their infrastructure.
Right.
So, so what you're saying is like it's just American as apple pie. It's like this is what they think of us, and this is how they treat us. And so
So the government has, I want people to understand this, that, we hear terms thrown around now and they're politicized and a lot of times, and they're talked about during election cycles. We hear gerrymandering, we hear redlining. But what that means from a financial perspective is much deeper than just somebody didn't let us play in the sandbox. What that means is, the growth of, when they talk about the greatest generation, right? So a lot of our parents, our grandparents were part of the greatest generation. Most of our grandparents were part of this other generation that was sort of like a micro generation, like Gen X. It was called the silent generation. But some folks that were born, in the 19 teens, they were the end of the greatest generation. Those were the ones who came back from World War II mainly. Our grandparents usually were the ones who were in Korea, but the World War II generation, they came back, and immediately there was an economic boom coming out of the Great Depression. The war brought us out of the Great Depression. Okay, and then with all of this newfound resource from the war, the spoils of war, basically, it was put into the New Deal and programs like this. And specifically, I want to highlight the FHA program, the Fair Housing Act program, which later turned into Fair Housing Administration. The Fair Housing Act simply said that we're going to give low interest loans, and they're going to be backed by government bonds. And so lenders can feel a lot better about lending low interest to more riskier profiles.
Right.
It would not have gotten past the Dixiecrats if FDR did not agree with the Dixiecrats that Black people would not be allowed. So how did that happen? Well, that happened through redlining. So what happened from 1934 to 1968? We saw the greatest accumulation of wealth and wealth transfer from a generation to the next generation. So from that silent from the greatest generation to the silent generation to the baby boomers. Okay, our parents were baby boomers. Okay, right. Now this generation accumulated and then passed on to the baby boomers a great amount of wealth. It's documented. It's the greatest wealth accumulation in this nation, 1934 all the way through 1986. Okay, so from 1934 to 1968, it was illegal for a bank to give an FHA loan to Black folks.
Wow.
98% of those loans went to white folks. 0% of those loans went to Black folks. And 2% was Asian or something else that was able to sneak in there. But 0% went to us until 1968. Did overt racism stop in 1968?
Absolutely
no.
Not. So we weren't getting FHA loans until well into the 80s. My oldest sister was born in 1968. All right. So we're not talking about a long time ago, but I'm highlighting that because that's just one of the many atrocities from an economic standpoint. We were literally kept from the greatest wealth accumulation this country has ever seen. Now, this isn't even talking about, what happened during slavery when America became America. We're talking about simply what has happened in the modern times, right? When we know people who were born in these times. So when we talk about reparations, this isn't just some fanciful idea of things that need to be repaired from 250 years ago when slavery was booming and cotton was king. We're talking about things right now that affect all of us. Who had their house passed on to them from their parents?
Exactly.
Not y'all. I know you can not tell me.
That's
I
right.
know that's right. But when I ask white folks my age, oh yeah, my mom got her house from her grandparents.
Yep.
They bought it for $5,000 and now it just sold for $500,000. That type of wealth accumulation isn't normal.
Yeah.
That's the American dream we've been kept from.
Right. And what's real interesting about those that are against reparations, right? And they try to throw that word socialism out. But what is Social Security? That is, what is Social Security? That is the government giving you money to help you survive. And then the other thing too, which is funny, is like right. And as soon as dollars start affecting the 1% or the elite or whites in a sense, right?
Yeah.
That's when we can find $2.6 trillion
right.
to help their businesses and to help them come up. When it comes to giving back to Black folk, all that they've done, we don't want to do that. It's all that other stuff.
By the way, they did that in 6 weeks.
Right. Yeah. They found money.
So by the way, the magic number for reparations is about 12 trillion.
Easy.
Okay? So that's the number that people are the people who study this, who have studied this, and they're Harvard educated, and the top of whatever. I went to FAMU, so I'm like, okay, Harvard, whatever. But Harvard is something special. So Harvard educated folks, these folks say the number is about 12 trillion. Okay, so they just tricked off 2.3 trillion in 6 weeks.
Right. Right.
We could be repaired if someone said we're gonna pay reparations over 15, 20 years, nobody would blink an eye.
Easy.
Nobody would blink an eye.
Right.
And that's the disheartening part. And I tell you, it's disheartening from the standpoint of we're so quick to regurgitate some of the defenses or denials of what we have heard without understanding the full story. where we can't apply the right amount of pressure to even have it be a conversation worth having.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, right? Mm-hmm. So one, in order for reparations to even be a thought on the government's mind, someone will have to be willing to sit at the table, right? Mm-hmm. Before you get into what does a reparations package look like, can you speak a little bit more about how do you get people to the table from both sides, people that oppose it or people that are in power that can actually stroke a pen and make it happen, and those that are asking for it?
Well, I'm a believer, and so my faith tells me that MLK said it best: the moral arc of the universe will always bend towards justice. So I'm cautiously optimistic that it's heading in the right direction. And what I mean by that is it's simple, and it's taken 25 years, but or actually more now. It's taken close over 30 years, 32 years to be exact. But we're getting the specific type of pressure that we need now, and it's coming from grassroots. You've heard for the first time in the history of this country, I believe, that reparations made it to the debate stage for presidential candidacies. John Conyers introduced a bill called H.R. 40 in 1988. It sat dormant in the House for nearly 30 years without much of a mention. The Congressional Black Caucus wouldn't get behind it because they didn't hear from their folks that said this is important. But Bill H.R. 40 from 1988 has stated to call on the United States to just do a study on reparations. So on the merit of it, and if it's feasible to do. And so, I always say this time past the civil rights, that really was, 1968 was really the last year that we won and got a lot of, let me say, those spoils of war. Past that time, we got into this wilderness place where we really didn't fight for much of anything. But from that time, oh, hey. Okay. Go. Hey. Go.
That's what's up, man. That's what it's all about, man. And we fighting for.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. But from that time, we really haven't done much of anything. And so now the reason why folks are talking about it is because it's becoming more of a conversation that needs to be had about the merit, number one, but then about the juice. We've got some folks in Congress now. Karen Bass out of California is a bad woman, and she presses really hard, and she has enough of her and Sheila Jackson Lee have pressed really hard to get this where they say they have the votes now. They haven't voted on it yet, but if it just passes the House and gets to the Senate, then it becomes something where, that's a conversation that has to be had on the mainstream. And it starts there. But one thing I do want to say is not to get that confused with just voting. But I also want to say we cannot compromise what's important to us, right? Right. And what I'm saying by that is a lot of the times we get lost in the sauce because we hear about a majority group saying this is what is important, but that stuff doesn't really affect us all the time.
Yeah.
Because my dad said it, my granddaddy used to say, white folks catch a cold, black folks catch a flu, right? And so it's usually been bad for us, right? So we've created these almost subterfuged and underground black markets to solve very complex problems like healthcare, right? So homeopathy, natural care, that's our people. We do that, right? And that's because we couldn't necessarily, and I'm not saying that has solved all our problems. We need healthcare. However, that's just not the first and foremost thing, right? Yeah. Folks have, literally, we can't get haircuts. You know what I mean? We can't get these folks were not only pillars in our communities, but these folks, salons, beauty stylists, this is how a lot of our people were eating.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind for us isn't always what the problem is for white folks. Mm-hmm. However, our voting patterns seem like the first thing that comes to mind for us are the problems for white folks.
Right.
So why shouldn't we demand that if you want our vote, which is the vote, it's like if you follow football, it's the third down specialist, right? You know, if we need 10 yards, we're going to get you 3 yards. If you need 1 yard, we're going to get you 3 yards. But we're still a minority, right? So we're going to have to use our vote in a way that's saying whoever wants it. And I don't care if it's Democrat, Republican, somebody from Pluto. If you're going to really take reparations serious, then that's where we need to have some conversations.
And to support your point, you know, like I'm out here on the streets and we're trying to rally folks to vote. And so one of the things that I've discovered about white supremacy is that it's created to make you tired. Like that is what white supremacy does. It makes you tired. And I see the defeat in Black people's faces because we have been like left out so much. We have given up on even trying to fight for what we need. And it's almost like, man, we don't trust no systems. We don't trust nobody. Everybody who's skin and kin. We get Black people in office. We get Ben Carson's in office.
Oh yeah.
So
turn on your people.
So let me ask you a question about that, right? So I feel like this is a subject that can get people, if they truly fully understood it, could rally people to really come to the polls and, well, not just come to the polls, but hold leadership's feet to the fire. You want to get in office, then you got to address this issue. Yeah. Surprisingly to me, and I think I mentioned this to you guys earlier, I was taking a look at Joe Biden's platform, and it struck me that he actually had one of his pillars on there is creating a panel or creating a group to study reparations and what that would look like. Not necessarily saying that he co-signs it or he agrees with it or he plans to do anything about it, but the fact that that was one of the pillars in his platform and that he wanted to create a consortium to basically come together and study that. So how do you get people excited about that? Is it that you educate them on what it looks like? Is it that you educate them with the benefit to them? Because most people won't do stuff unless they actually know how it directly impacts their lives.
So before you answer, I want to actually just jump in real quick into your question, McDonald. And it's something that Javante said. I think that, and Javante's probably going to pick it up. I think we need to do like a dual action, and that is vote, but also secure our neighborhoods and secure our wealth. And I think what happens with Black people, why we've been so defeated, is because we've put all our chips in one basket and depended on candidates to do for us what we can do for ourselves. So I was feeling Javante when he was saying, man, we need to start policing our own neighborhoods. We need to build Black Wall Street, which was the first terrorist act in America, and stop depending on America to give us what we need. So that's kind of how I see it. I know Javante probably has some ideas and thoughts about that as well.
Yeah, you can't hop off into politics without an economy, without a strong economy. You can't hop off into anything that relates to anything without a strong economy. You can't hop off into sociological issues without a strong economy. And what I mean by that is, you know, there are the businesses that do exist primarily exist in Black neighborhoods. The folks who can spend more with those businesses don't live in those neighborhoods. Right. And so, you know, after Trayvon Martin, it was interesting. I was living in Singapore and I was in Singapore. Actually, my family hadn't moved over yet. I had been over for about a month and a half, and I was on my way to go get them when the verdict came out, the Zimmerman verdict came out specifically. And on Facebook, I just rattled off sort of like, hey, here are 10 steps that we can do. And then my wife coined it this back to blacklist. But the first thing on there was simple as move back into Black neighborhoods, because the physicality of where we are has a lot to do with how we spend our money. Right? So you can easily go get a croissant from your local grocer, right? So y'all are there, you know, you can go to Tom Thumb or wherever. If you know, I think y'all in Dallas, you know, if you in Florida, you know, you go to Publix, you can get a croissant.
We got Tom Thumb.
Yeah, but if you're in you know, Oak Cliff,
Opelika.
Yeah, or Opelika,
right?
Maybe there's a Black baker there, you know, and no, you're not gonna go out of your way to go and support them for a croissant, but if it's on the way home from work, absolutely they're gonna get more of your business. So when you strengthen the Black economy, you strengthen Black community. When you strengthen Black economy, then you can make demands of politicians, because the politicians are going to follow tax dollars.
Right.
So if I'm a high income earner, right? So I'm speaking to a specific group right now, the talented 10th, because Du Bois is my man. Right. I believe in a lot of what Du Bois said in terms of the talented 10th. If we're saying, you know, we're going to be the ones that lead the rest of us somewhere, it's got to be in every inch of our soul. It can't just be in how we talk, but it's also in how we walk, also how we spend. Our expenditures have to be that way. So that is number one. But when we get to the topic of politics, we have to really understand what we are playing for, right? And so when we're playing politics now, it's the bottom of the ninth, it's 2 outs, and we're down by 2 runs, and we the only ones up to bat, and there's 1 man on base, maybe, right? So this thing ain't working unless we hitting home runs,
right?
Okay, so and I just want to be mindful of, you mentioned in the beginning, you know, I'm self-proclaimed a lot of things, but history buff is one of them, that all of our rights came in a time where the Supreme Court was extremely conservative. Okay, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that it looked like very implausible for it to happen. We did not have friends in the White House. LBJ called the Civil Rights Bill the nigger bill. And he got it done, though. And he got it done from pressures of folks who did not vote for him. Okay, so all of our major wins, when you go back to 1964, 65, 66, and 60, 1864, 65, 66, and 68, when they passed, first Emancipation Proclamation, Sherman Order number 15, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, we weren't voting. You know, but pressure was applied in other ways, right? And this is not a rally for folks not to vote. But when I hear people say, you know, our life depends on us voting and voting to get Trump out of office, our goal can't be defense. Right. We got runs on the board right now. We can't, we're not going to win to say we're up to bat. No, we'd rather play defense. Right. It's not going to work that way. We got to do something more than what is conventional wisdom.
Yeah, because white folks play offense, man. They buy politicians.
Oh, yeah.
They just buy them straight up. You know, the going cost for a politician on a local level is about 100,000. I mean, city council, 15,000. They buy them. They got them in their pocket, and they vote their special interests.
So let's get to the meat and potatoes. Let's put it out there. What let's say Javante was running for president, and you had
I'm voting for him right now.
and you had a platform, right? And your primary pillar is reparations.
Yeah.
Paint a picture of what that looks like.
Okay, so first, I want to talk about what it doesn't look like.
Okay.
It does not look like us infighting about who gets what. Okay, because I want to dispel this, because I hear a lot of folks say, "Oh, we don't even know who's black these days," or whatever. People classify themselves as biracial, or they say they're black, but they're not African Americans. So there are 40 million black folks in this country. Okay, 10% are descendants of immigrants, not slaves, immigrants, or, you know, I think like 2% are actual immigrants today, but some may be children of immigrants, all this stuff. So you're talking about 4 million black folks. So I just want to do simple math. We're talking about $12 trillion is the magic number. We got 40 million black folks. When you divide that out, that's going to be about $300,000 per person. Okay. And we'll get to it in a second, but I'm not saying everyone gets a check for $300,000. But what I'm saying is we're not talking about a grand number of monies that are available for folks to be fighting over who gets what. What I mean by that is this: 36 million would be the number if we excluded all immigrants or descendants of immigrants. If you can't show that you were a descendant of a slave, or if you can't show that you were saying you were black prior to 2 censuses ago, then you're excluded. That's 4 million black folks. Okay, so the number doesn't change per person. You're gonna get up to $333,000. So first thing I want to do is say black folks don't need to be fighting over who gets what. Who is not important. What could it look like? Okay, there are a lot of discussions about what it could look like. This is what I think will correct a lot of wrongs. So I like to start with number one off top. no income tax for 99 years. Why are we paying taxes but being treated as second-class citizens? That's number one. No business tax for 99 years. We've been kept out of creating businesses. Our businesses have not been able to grow because folks pay business tax, expecting SBA to do a lot of things for them, and they have done the opposite for Black folks. Okay, so no business tax for 99 years. No mortgage interest for 99 years. So we get, if the house costs $200,000, we get 30 years to pay off $200,000.
Right.
Okay, so it's not 230, it's not 250, it's not 300,000 that you pay over 30 years. It's you paying exactly what that house costs, no mortgage interest, and this is backed by the government. The government's paying for this. Okay, we get obviously all the health care. We get free health care. I absolutely need it. African American history is taught in every public school and is required to graduate high school in this country. We get free education in every public institution in this country. So if you want to go to Harvard, you got to pay. But if you want to go to FAMU, which is a state school, public school, you can do that for free, no matter where you live, right? So these are some of the things that are just fundamental programs, similar to what has happened for the Native Americans, the few that are left, some of the programs that they have put in place for them as well. And I think that is going to cover a lot of ground for us. We spend, your biggest expense is taxes. And after that, it's your housing. So when you look at your family budget or just your P&L overall, you're putting a lot of money back into folks' pockets to be able to do different things. Right. It's really interesting. When I was living in Asia, I was in Singapore. If you've seen pictures of Singapore, you've seen this building. It looks like a cruise ship is on the top of these, these three pillars. That's the Marina Bay Sands. It's a casino. And at the top of it, there's this restaurant bar called Coup d'etat. So up there, talking, met this guy, white guy, super cool. He was like from somewhere like probably Boston or something. I can't exactly remember. And we were just talking, very similar. We were in our early 30s at the time, and night was going on, a few drinks back, and he's like, "Dude, it's so funny how similar we are. We're like the same, bro. I feel like we did." And it was cool. It was a cool conversation. But I stopped him in the middle of my buzz and was like, "Hold up. We ain't the same." I was like, "So you told me," and I can't remember. It wasn't Harvard, but it may have been Cornell or something like that. I was like, "You told me you went to Cornell, right?" And then you say your dad went to Cornell, right? And then where your granddaddy go to school? You're like, he went to Cornell too. I said, okay, my grandma was a drug dealer, amongst many other things. We ain't the same. We had the same face, but clearly, and I stun on him like, I feel I'm more brilliant. I got to where you are, and I did not have those advantages. What's my point in saying this? How many of us, people look at Mark Zuckerberg, compare him to a Jay-Z or Kanye, who's crazy as hell. But, the fact that is these guys become billionaires with a lot less.
Right.
So you look at a Robert Smith, compare him to a Bill Gates. Didn't start in the same place. But so how many of us didn't get to where we were going because we had so many fetters on us, right? And so reparations can undo a lot of that. It can unfetter us in a way where we can exponentially probably catch up if some of these things were put in place.
So I got a question, Javante. I love the plan that you put together and that you expressed in a few minutes ago. What would you say to somebody who says, okay, yeah, we implement that plan. Do we need to do away with affirmative action? Does affirmative action cease to exist?
Hey, we could do away with affirmative action because if you look at the numbers, it's helping white women more than Black folks anyway.
That's true.
That's number one. 25% of Americans work in large corporations, corporate America.
Yeah.
Okay? And at best, companies who do it well are employing 10% Black folk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just do the numbers and do the math.
Yeah, I did and that's a good point because I remember doing a study on nonprofit management, and most of the CEOs of the nonprofits that are servicing in African American communities are led by white women.
Yeah,
The only black people that are on there are treasurers or underworkers. The whole staffing. So white women winning, they getting all that federal grant money, and they are servicing in impoverished communities. So that's an excellent point that you made just now.
Yeah. So some of the programs that there was a window when affirmative action was really winning for black folks. It was about 1968 to 1986. Studies have been done to show that. But a lot of things changed in that time, right?
Yeah.
So, you had Nixon come in, who was very much a proponent of it. Okay, even though he's a lot of other things, including the Southern strategy and all of this stuff, but he was a proponent of affirmative action. And after Nixon, you had Carter, but Reagan looked to undo a lot of what Carter did, because Carter is historically considered a very bad president.
Right.
And everybody was voting for Reagan.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Reagan said was, "Hey, this is unfair," because he started talking about equality, and there's a difference in what we're looking for. We're not looking for equality.
Yeah.
That was something that we were looking for when we didn't have it.
Right. Yeah. I want
equity now.
Right.
And the big difference is one pie. So equality is, okay, somebody got 3 pieces and I only have 0, and now, okay, from now on, 1 for me, 1 for you. That's what's been happening in the best case scenario. Mm-hmm. We say, no, it's only 6 pieces of pie in here. You already got 3. I need those other 3.
Yeah.
So go ahead, finish your thought, and I'll continue after that.
So Reagan started to undo anything that looked like equity and base it on equality. And Bush followed up with that. And so the beneficiaries, and the laws are written in a very interesting way, but the beneficiaries since that time have largely been white women, because to hit diversity numbers, white women are included.
Yeah.
And not to say they should not be, but when you look at corporate America, which I'm a part of, and you look across the board and you see that there are only 5 black CEOs of Fortune 500 corporations. Those numbers don't add up. That's not an equitable distribution of the population of this country. And we have to keep in mind that the paradigm is never that we're inept. Okay. And when there is a role higher than CEO in corporate America, it's called the board of directors. Yep. And when you look at the corporate boards of directors, the numbers are even more dismal. They're more dismal, right?
Yeah. Right.
Where the real money makers are, so where you can become millionaire, multimillionaire, create generational wealth in corporate America, we ain't been hitting that for a long time anyway. So affirmative action, yeah. If we're gonna give that up and get reparations, I think we'd be okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think everything that you just said is really great, and I think that for the average person that probably thought that there was some outlandish ask tied to I said affirmative action, but reparations, could probably easily digest this. But for the average white person, right, that may see this video, that may think like, oh gosh, they're coming to get our stuff. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to why this is actually a benefit to folks that don't look like us?
So I love the teaser that you put together, and you took the line from Nipsey, right? He said, "I need some real nigga reparations."
You see my shirt right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. You always be geared up, man. First of all, let's just talk about that for a second. The hat is banging, the shirt. I got to plug. I told my homegirl I got to plug her. This is a Chocolate Chick Tees. Wait, let me go over here.
Shirts. Oh, man. That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
Yeah, send us the IG and all that afterwards.
Yeah, she's based in Dallas too. She's based in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm the only colonized one wearing a Ralph Lauren t-shirt. So please forgive me.
But you know what you get what the majority of white folks that are not around black people, that didn't grow up with black people, are not used to black people. What they're scared of is the horrible stereotypes that have been painted of us over the last 40 to 50 years, right? But MLK said it in a much more refined way than Nipsey Hussle. He said, wherever there is no strong economy, immorality will surely prevail.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so what we're talking about is, if you want to really make America great again, you're going to have to start with Muhammad Yunus, who is the founder of the Grameen Bank, microfinancing, micro lending. He's a Bangladeshi. He's won a Nobel Prize for a lot of his work in microeconomics. He calls it the least common denominator, and every society has a least common denominator. And so what a least common denominator is a very simple thing, is who's doing the worst in that society. Mm-hmm. And so I don't care if you're looking at economic statistics, or you're looking at health statistics, or you're looking at imprisonment rates, or you're looking at recidivism rates. If you're looking at morbidity rates, we're doing the worst. Okay, so you cannot be strong without your weakest doing better. It just doesn't work that way, right? So we have to have a real conversation about how do we get better. And all of the rising tides lift all boats, who even Obama was really a fool for saying that. It just has never worked for Black folks. Mm-hmm. It never worked for Black folks, right? That is Reaganomics. The rising tide lifts all boats is Reaganomics. It is definitely center of the road, a moderate view of if we do things for the majority, then everyone will be taken care of. But history tells us a completely different story when it's for Africans in America. It just doesn't work for us that way. So we have to do some things. We didn't get here in a non-descriptive and a non-specific way. So we have to be very descriptive and specific to cure the root cause and not address the symptoms.
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, man. You know, sometimes, man, I sit down and I say the social experiment of Blacks in America ain't working.
Yeah,
we need this. We need to make this mass exodus and go back to where we belong, our home, because we out here just trying to figure it out. And every time we take 2 steps forward, it's like we go, 4 steps backwards, because as you know, white supremacy is just embedded and enrooted in this country's DNA. And I think it's even more vivid now with the advent of social media, because Black folk been talking about, police are killing us. Mm-hmm. We've been saying that for years, but now, matter of fact, let's use COVID-19. COVID-19 has revealed the inequality of our health, our health infrastructure.
Right.
And the sad part is that, these governors are opening up states and they know essential workers are African-American people. Mm-hmm. They just don't care about it. But as long as their pockets are filled, we're indispensable.
I want to share this one story. I don't know how much time we have, but we got time. I always go back to history, right? So coming out of World War II, and the New Deal had been signed, and Black folks had been back for a while. So Asa Philip Randolph, who was the leader of the Pullman brothers, a Black Union, he's really the godfather of the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. He had got a meeting in the White House, and this is very important because Black folks weren't allowed in the White House after Teddy Roosevelt let Booker T. Washington into the White House, and that was like he might as well had a Black woman in his bed because white folks lost it. Right. So his second cousin, the older cousin. So his nephew, basically, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, invited Asa Randolph off the strength of his wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, to the White House. And so Asa Philip Randolph was in there saying, look, man, y'all tripping. Like these things, we can't get anything. We can't organize. We getting it coming and going. This is about 1947. And FDR said, I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm going to say something to you that you probably are going to think is cruel. You'll probably think it's cruel. I don't care. And he said, I don't care because my constituents don't care. Mm-hmm. If you want me to care, make me care. So A. Philip Randolph left with that. And that is what really birthed the conversations and talk of the civil rights movement. And the history books tell us it's not really something that really kicked off until 7 years later, 1954, Brown versus Board, 1955, Montgomery bus boycott. But the work had started right then. A. Philip Randolph went back, started organizing, Urban League, NAACP, everything, and said, we have to make more noise. we can't play this silent role anymore. And so this is where we're at right now, is that, yeah, absolutely, we are losing, but we have to be very specific. We cannot just simply say Trump is evil. White supremacy is evil.
Right.
Trump is a fruit of the tree. He is not the tree.
Right.
So what are we looking to dismantle?
That's right. You got to cut down the whole tree.
Our collective voice and agenda behind throwing away a fruit.
Right. Make no sense.
We're too talented for that. We're too amazing. We're the originators. We're the original. We can do more, and we owe it to ourselves to advance where our ancestors left us. You know, and so the reason I'm harping on that is because what is the next frontier? What's the next frontier if it's not reparations? Yeah. Is it simply to ensure that we play defense and we make sure that overt racists are kept out of our most prestigious positions in this country where we're second-class citizens? It's got to be more than that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man. Well, look, man, I know what I'm working on with the group of pastors out here is building the beloved economy and building the beloved community. And so what we're doing is looking at what we have, and we've written out a strategic plan of how that looks like and what that looks like. And it's not contingent and dependent. So we're basically saying this. It is Dallas, you can get with this, or if you don't, we're going to do this anyway. And so that means we're keeping our property. We're not selling it to you. Yes. We are building on our land. You can lease it from us, or you can get with the program or not. So I'll put it up there where we've written out a full list of demands, of lists that we have come with, and it's woke pastors. Unfortunately, it ain't no pastors from my denomination, because my denomination ain't woke, and I know I always get in trouble every time I say that. But I'm working with some woke pastors to develop that, going back to MLK's beloved community, and fighting for jobs and demanding that, that we stand up for ourselves and not wait for other people. And I think that's like the problem that I have with us as a people, and what you stated is, we are the inventors.
Yeah.
We don't need white validation. We don't need white approval to do anything that we need to do. We got everything. McDonald, you are a genius. You know what I'm saying? Like what you do with your family, and then Ryan and Crown, Javante, you are a genius and a gift. All the people watching this are genius and gifts. And once we stop seeking white validation and approval,
that's right.
Dude, man, we'll be there.
Let me ask one last question before we close out. So a lot of great ideas, a lot of great discussion and so forth. But the thing that I always am fearful of is the unification of messaging, the unification of people behind an idea, and leadership.
Yeah,
I think one of the things that I've always grappled with is, why are we so, outside of every other nation, every other race, we're the only ones that seem to be so fractured. How do you get everyone unified behind, one prevailing idea, one prevailing message, and one common goal, and getting everyone on the same page? Because if we're fractured, I don't know how you get this all to work.
So history says we've always been fractured. For every Du Bois, there was a Booker T and a Garvey.
Right.
The Malcolm, Martin, Roy Wilkins. None of these people were on the same page.
Right.
You can go back further than that, right? I could do this all day, right?
Right.
Even, and it's not just us, right? You look at if you look at the history of Asia, and you look at what Mahatma Gandhi did, he was not popular. He died by assassination. He was, and there was a different school of thought for how they wanted to free themselves from colonizers. It was no different in Singapore, in Malaya, which is now Singapore and Malaysia. There's two countries because they were fractured.
Right.
Okay. So history says that, but one thing that was for sure is there was a link and there was a focus on a goal. And what makes me cringe the most is how easily we will hand over our babies and our children to white thought in education and everything else, right? So, you know, my daughter 2 weeks ago, she hated me because I made her memorize, learn, and sing to the top of her lungs the Negro National Anthem.
Mm-hmm.
But then we talked about, she's, you know, 8 going on 9, but we talked about what those lyrics meant and what that was saying and why it was so important that she understood what that was now, not later. Because if we can all understand our framework, first, we're African people. We are Black folk. Okay, so that is an underlying theme of we should be connected. And then when you look at that from that lens, well, how are we being treated? The solutions may differ, but the end goal should be the same. And that's what keeps me optimistic. And as long as our leaders talk like that and don't talk like a Ben Carson or, you know, someone else, you know, even some of these more conservative cats like, you know, Walt Williams, I think his name is Walter Williams. I can get with him a little bit, but he starts talking crazy when he's like, we should just forget about everything in the past. Nah. But I can get with some of these because okay, you have a different point of view on how to get there, but you understand that we are a people and we need to go somewhere. That is the thing that I'm scared about that. But overall, I'm not scared about if there are a couple different ways that we feel like we can skin the cat.
Yeah.
But the question to ask, if you feel like you are pro-Black because you go into a voting booth, but then you go vote for somebody who ain't got a pro-Black agenda or a Black agenda at all, nah.
Right.
It's got to be more than just taking that time to do something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other group that I don't want to leave out of this discussion is the Black church.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The Black church is a pivotal piece to the advancement of Black people because the most powerful day in the Black community is Sunday. It is the only day when poor Blacks, rich Blacks, educated Blacks sit down in one room. You can't get all them Black people in one room.
Yeah.
And then we got the nerve to get up there to shuck and jive, sing and dance, and we don't talk about empowering our own people. And that's what bothers me, man. The Black church is the central figure to the advancement of colored people. Well, I say colored people, but to Black people. And the Black church has been silent when it comes to that, and they have been complicit with the white supremacist agenda by just giving Black people an opioid every Sunday and Saturday, you know, and they just go on about their business.
Yeah, now y'all ain't taking none of them faith-based grants, right? I just that's usually the tie right there. You got to follow 30th Street, right? But I commend you for what you were doing, Pastor. What you guys are doing is amazing. You know, in Dallas, I frequented Friendship West a lot because Pastor Haynes over there, he's on the tree of
and just to shout out the Dallas Black Clergy, the org, he's on that coalition too. Yeah, so we all working together. Yeah, my church, his church, and we're trying to push this agenda for Black folks. So
it's a beautiful thing, and people have said, I've talked about that, and specifically him. That's who I'm most familiar with in Dallas of churches that I visited. And be like, I don't like to hear all that, social justice every day. I'm like, what else is there to talk about? You're talking about Jesus, right? I mean, you talking about Jesus. That was his thing,
right?
Oppressed. So we gotta, this is what we talking about. So I'm with you all of the way, and I'm also with you in understanding that the Black church is in a state of atrophy because it was our strongest arm.
Yeah, right.
Get back there, and I think we can get back there if more pastors are like you, who I would love to be in your church. And McDonald, I know you from down here. Please point me to one down here.
I'm maybe 20-something years removed, man. I couldn't even help you, brother.
But that I think that it's important to say, folks like to say, and I will never let I grew up Baptist, raised in the church, choir boy. I believe in the Black church for all that it's worth, and I know that. But I'm also not a fool, right? So I know I've seen the message has gotten to want to be more charismatic, evangelic, and even more so. We've always had that opiate type of Christ because we need it. Yeah. We need it the same way as we got opiate food. And the same way we got opiate drugs, we need our Jesus to be a little bit of, make us feel a little good. Because Sunday, we need to feel that Sundays. We need to
white Jesus gonna kill you.
Right. We need to hear that. We need to hear what happened Thursday night and Friday and Saturday for sure. So, and if we get back to that, right? In the history of the Black churches, it always has been the epicenter of our communities, and we can get back to that. If I love to hear what you guys are doing, and I hope it. I love to hear you talking about not selling your land, and I hope it's encouraging folks to move back near the churches, move back near our people, because all it takes is 10 families. If we can just get 10 families, we can change schools. The public schools won't be as bad, because I tell you, any church, any school I'll go into, if my children are in there, I'm gonna cause some problems if things ain't looking right.
Right.
And so, that, and if I get 10 like me, or 10 out of it, because y'all can see I'm amped. But if I get some brothers in there who's on 6 and 7 with me, we could do a lot of damage.
Yeah. I just want to say, man, look, man, you brought up something about this platform, and that, when we were talking about even having this platform to even do any types of shows on this, we wanted to keep it funky, man. Like, everything is on the table. We're not going to mince words or try to say things because we want to pacify people. There's enough platforms for that. So if that's what you're looking for, this ain't it. We're going to talk about everything. And to our viewers, if there's a topic or a subject that you'd like us to touch on, let us know. Drop a comment. Reach out to myself or Jamie, and we'll talk about it. But absolutely, man, we appreciate you coming on, dropping the gems that you did unabashedly, and your passion. It shows, and I just appreciate you, man, more than I have before already, man. I really do appreciate you. You make me proud to be from FAMU, for real. And like I said, Jamie, man, you got to get your weight up, man. You got to get somebody from your
I'm gonna come with some heavy hitters, man. You're making me look bad out here, but yo, Javante,
it's all for the cause, man. All for the cause.
Yo, you are a genius, man. I love your brain. I love how you think. Please don't put a muzzle on it. Share your thoughts and ideas. Our kids need to hear it. They need to grow up, and they need to continue to fight this good fight. And so, man, just thank you for who you are, man, and for what you do, and for jumping on this with us. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you all for having me, man. Anytime I can get an outlet to espouse my views, I appreciate it. But more than that, I've been tuning in to some of the other shows, and I really appreciate the work you guys are doing. Keep it up, please.
Appreciate it, man. With that said, man, this is 2 really dope dudes, man. Check us in next time, same channel, same website. We appreciate you all, and good night.
Yeah, don't forget to hit that like button and that share. Enjoy this music as you bounce. This is Common Hymnals called Rose Petals, man. So be blessed.